Ever get that feeling?
Yeah.
Like way in the back of your mind, that nagging thought that you could be doing more, learning faster, if you could just focus.
Oh, totally. It's like this constant low-level hum of distraction these days.
Exactly. Well, today we're going deep on a skill that feels, honestly, kind of like a superpower in this crazy notification-filled world we live in. Deep work.
I love it. And it's so needed, right?
Right. It's based on Cal Newport's work, and we're going to break down exactly how you can unlock that focus potential within yourself. It's like a personal guide to getting stuff done.
Awesome. Because in a world that's literally built to distract us, being able to carve out that space for real concentrated effort, I mean, that's not just a plus anymore. It's a straight-up advantage.
100%. It's like pushing back against the always-on, got-to-be-connected mentality that's got to become the norm.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. While Newport kind of gave us the term deep work, the idea itself, the core of it, has been around forever.
Oh, for sure.
Go back to like the early 1900s, Carl Jung, the psychologist.
Right.
He built this super isolated stone retreat in Switzerland.
Oh, yeah, Bollingen, Zurich.
That's the one. And why'd he do it? To get away from, well, basically all the same distractions we're dealing with today. He wanted to completely lose himself in his work. He didn't use the fancy term deep work, but those long stretches of intense focus out there in the quiet. That was exactly what he was doing.
It makes you think, doesn't it? Even way back then, smart people understood that to do really deep, meaningful work, you got to step away from the noise.
Totally. It's like this fundamental human thing, this need for focused environments to do our best work.
Absolutely. And Jung's retreat, it's like a perfect early example of that in action.
So let's be super clear about what we're talking about here. Deep work, by Newport's definition, means professional activities performed in a state of distraction-free concentration that push your cognitive capabilities to their limit.
Okay, so we're not just talking about like silencing your phone during a meeting. This is way deeper.
Right. It's about sustained focus, intense focus, the kind that really stretches your brain. It's what a lot of high achievers do, but it's definitely not easy. And honestly, that's probably why it's not that popular. It takes work. It's way easier to just bounce between emails all day.
100%. But you hit on something important there. The fact that it's challenging, the fact that our brains kind of resist it sometimes, that's exactly what makes it so valuable.
Right. Like if everyone could just slip into this super focused state effortlessly, it wouldn't be special. The fact that it takes effort, that it takes discipline, that's what gives you an edge.
Totally agree.
So what are we doing today? Think of this as your deep work toolkit. We're going to dig into why it's so crucial now, why it's so hard to find, and why doing it can actually make your work more meaningful.
Sounds good to me.
And then we're going to get practical. We're going to break down the actual rules, the steps you can take to make deep work a part of your life.
Love it. So where do we start? Why is this so important right now?
Okay, so Newport uses this idea from a book called Race Against the Machine by Eric Brynjolfsson and Andrew McAfee.
Okay, I've heard of that one.
They talk about this thing called the Great Restructuring. Basically, it's this growing gap between how fast technology is advancing and how fast the average worker's skills are improving.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Like technology is always changing, right?
All the time. And it paints a pretty stark picture where machines are getting better and better at doing all the routine tasks, which means some human workers might get left behind.
Yeah, that's the worry, isn't it?
But there's good news, too. They also highlight the types of workers who will not just survive, but thrive in this new economy.
Okay, so who are they?
Newport calls them high-skill workers, superstars, and owners of capital.
Owners of capital, that's a whole other thing. But the other two, those are interesting.
Right, and they seem a lot more achievable for most people, right?
For sure.
So let's break those down. Let's talk about the high-skill worker. Newport uses the example of Nate Silver, the data analyst.
Oh, yeah, he's the guy who uses all that complex data to make predictions about elections and stuff.
Exactly. He uses these super powerful statistical tools, like a program called Stata, to analyze information and make those predictions.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. To master tools like that, it takes serious focus and practice. For Silver, technology isn't a threat. It's like this amplifier for his deep skills.
So it's not just about knowing how to use the software. It's about really understanding what's going on underneath, the actual statistical concepts, and then being able to use those creatively to get something meaningful from the data.
Exactly. You can't just skim the surface and expect to get those kinds of results.
Nope.
Then we have the superstars. Think of someone like David Hansen, the guy who created Ruby on Rails.
Okay. Yeah, I know that name.
With remote work becoming more common, Thanks to tools like email and video conferencing, companies can now find the absolute best talent anywhere in the world.
Yeah, it's like the playing field has gotten a lot bigger.
Exactly. It's great for the top performers, but as Newport points out, it makes things way more competitive for people with more general skills who might have had an advantage just by living in a certain area.
So how do you stand out in a world like that?
That's the key question. You need to become a high-skill worker or a superstar. And this is where Newport's main argument comes in. He says your success hinges on two things. First, being able to quickly master hard things.
Because let's be real, things are always changing.
Always. So you got to be a fast learner. Second, you need the ability to produce at an elite level. That means not just learning skills, but mastering them and consistently creating high-quality work.
And both of those things, the learning and the producing, that's where deep work comes in.
Bingo. You can't just passively absorb information or mess around and expect to master a complex skill or create something truly exceptional. You need deep focus. Without it, learning tough stuff becomes a real slog, and the quality of your work just suffers. So in this crazy, fast-paced world, deep work isn't optional. It's essential.
Totally agree. It's like the foundation for everything else.
So if deep work is so valuable, why isn't everyone doing it? That brings us to the second big idea. Why deep work is becoming so rare. And this is where things get really interesting when you think about your own daily work life.
Okay, let's talk about that. What's getting in the way?
Newport points out these trends, these things that have become super common in offices, and they seem like they should be boosting productivity. But when you look closer, they're actually killing our ability to do deep work.
Interesting. Like what?
Like take the open office concept. It's huge, right?
Yeah.
Facebook, Silicon Valley, tons of companies love it.
Yeah, the whole idea is that by putting everyone together, you'll get more collaboration and spontaneous learning.
Exactly. But what really happens, you get more noise and more interruptions. It's like this constant buzz of activity that makes it almost impossible to focus.
Oh, I feel that. It's like you're always on edge, waiting for the next distraction.
Right. And then you've got instant messaging. Everyone's on Slack or Teams or whatever.
Right. And again, on the surface, it makes sense. Quick questions, quick answers, everyone's in the loop.
Supposedly more efficient,
Yeah.
right? But it creates this culture where you have to be available all the time. You get this never-ending stream of notifications and messages, and it just fragments your attention.
It's like you're constantly being pulled in a million directions.
100%.
Yeah.
And then there's this pressure to be active on social media, even for professionals. Even organizations like the New York Times have encouraged their staff to be on Twitter.
Yeah, the whole idea is about brand building and connecting with your audience.
But again, you're spending all this time crafting this online persona and getting caught up in these surface-level interactions.
And it eats away at the time and energy you could be spending on deep, meaningful work, the kind of work that actually makes a difference.
Exactly. So we have all these trends that are supposed to be about connection and efficiency, but they end up undermining the very thing that fuels innovation and quality work. Deep focus.
That's kind of ironic, isn't it?
Totally. And Newport says a big reason why companies don't really support deep work is this thing he calls the principle of least resistance. Think about it. In the short term, it's just easier to be constantly connected, to answer every email right away, to schedule another meeting to talk about progress.
It feels like you're being productive, right? Like you're getting stuff done.
Totally. And those things are fine in moderation, but they can become this trap where you're just busy all the time without actually creating anything of value.
And it's hard to measure, right? Like, how do you measure the output of a knowledge worker? It's not like counting how many widgets someone makes.
Exactly. You can't easily measure the value of a deep thought or a creative solution. So we fall back on these surface-level metrics, like how many emails someone sends or how many meetings they attend. It's like we're rewarding busyness over actual productivity.
Yeah, and then you have this whole cult of the internet thing going on.
Right. Like if you're not online all the time, you're missing out. You're irrelevant.
But Newport pushes back against that. He says there's nothing inherently better about being constantly distracted. Recognizing that is the first step towards taking back control and realizing that deep work is possible and it's beneficial.
I love that. So we've talked about why deep work matters in this economy, why it's so rare, and now let's get to the really cool stuff, why it's so meaningful. And Newport looks at this from three angles: the neurological, the psychological, and the philosophical.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Lay it on me.
First up, the brain stuff.
Yeah.
Newport talks about Winifred Gallagher, a science writer who was diagnosed with cancer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and she knew it was going to be tough, so she decided to focus on the good stuff in her life. Simple things, like watching movies, going for walks, having drinks with friends. And what's amazing is, even though she was going through something really difficult, she found this time to be really pleasant.
So it's like even in a tough situation where you choose to put your attention really matters.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And it highlights this idea that we have a lot more control over our experience than we think. Our brains are constantly constructing our reality, so if we focus on the negative, we're going to feel more negative. But if we focus on the positive, even in the midst of challenges, we can actually have a better experience.
Makes you think about all the little things we choose to focus on every day.
All the time. And this applies directly to work. Newport says that a workday filled with shallow, fragmented tasks, even if they seem harmless, can actually drain your brain and make you feel stressed and unhappy.
It's like your brain needs those moments of deeper engagement, of really grappling with a problem to feel satisfied.
Exactly. Now, let's talk about the psychology of meaning. Newport challenges this idea that happiness comes mainly from leisure and relaxation. He says unstructured free time can actually be kind of tough to deal with. It can make you feel restless or unfulfilled.
Yeah, like you're not really using your time well.
Right. And he says that work, especially when it's challenging and has clear goals, can actually be a source of pleasure and satisfaction.
That makes sense. When you really get into something, you lose track of time. You feel like you're in the zone.
Exactly. And that's flow, right? That state of total absorption that Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi talks about.
Oh, yeah, I've read about that. It's like when you're so focused on what you're doing that everything else just fades away.
And that feeling, that flow state, it lines up perfectly with deep work. It's in those moments of deep engagement that we feel the most accomplished and fulfilled. It's way more satisfying than those quick hits of dopamine we get from checking our phones or scrolling social media.
It's like a deeper level of satisfaction.
Exactly. Okay, last but not least, the philosophical argument.
Bring on the philosophy.
Newport starts with Descartes and the Enlightenment. The emphasis on individual thought and the idea that we create our own meaning. And that led to this kind of diminishing sense of inherent purpose in traditional structures.
Okay, so if meaning isn't just given to us, we have to find it ourselves.
Right. And then he brings in Hubert Dreyfus and Sean Dorrance Kelly, who wrote All Things Shiny. They say meaning isn't something we find out there in the world. It's something that's already within us and within the things around us.
Okay, so meaning is already there. We just have to unlock it.
Exactly. They use the example of a wheelwright, someone who makes wheels. They say the meaning is in the wood itself, in the tools, and it's the craftsman's skill and appreciation for the craft that brings that meaning to life.
So it's not just about the end product, it's about the process.
100%. And when we engage in deep work, we're not just checking things off a list, we're connecting with what we're doing, we're getting better at it, and we're creating something of value. And that, my friend, is where the real meaning comes in.
I love that. So we've covered why it's valuable, why it's rare, why it's meaningful. Now, how do we actually do it? How do we make deep work a part of our lives?
That's where the rules come in. And the first rule is, well, pretty straightforward. Work deeply.
Makes sense. But how?
Newport lays out a few different philosophies for scheduling and approaching deep work. He knows that one size doesn't fit all. We all have different lives, different jobs. So he encourages you to try things out, to find what works for you.
I like that. So what are the options?
The first one is the monastic philosophy. This is the most extreme approach. It's all about minimizing distractions to an insane degree.
Okay, so like living in a monastery.
Pretty much. He uses the example of Neil Stephenson, the sci-fi writer. He doesn't even have a public email address. The idea is to eliminate shallow work as much as possible and create these huge, uninterrupted blocks of time for deep focus.
I mean, that's pretty intense. Not sure I could go that far.
Yeah, it's not for everyone. But it shows you how valuable that uninterrupted time is. Then there's the bimodal philosophy. This is more like what Carl Jung did with his retreats. You divide your time, dedicate some periods exclusively to deep work, and then have other periods for everything else.
So like you might have a whole day or even a few days dedicated to deep work, and then other times for emails, meetings, social stuff.
Exactly. It's about having clear separation between those modes. You're either in deep work mode or you're not.
And that's tough in a normal work environment. How do you convince your boss to let you disappear for days at a time?
It can be tough. But the key is communication. Explain why you need that dedicated time. Show them the value it brings.
Okay, what else?
Then there's the rhythmic philosophy. Think of Jerry Seinfeld and his joke writing.
Oh yeah, he's super disciplined about that.
He writes new jokes every single day, and he marks an X on a calendar for each day he does it. It's this visual reminder of his consistency.
That's cool. So this philosophy is all about building a habit, making deep work part of your daily routine.
Exactly. You set aside the same time every day or every week, and eventually it becomes automatic. You don't even have to think about it.
Like brushing your teeth.
Exactly.
Okay.
And finally, there's the journalistic philosophy. This is about being able to switch into deep work mode quickly, even for short periods, no matter what else is going on. Like Walter Isaacson, the biographer. He could be hanging out with his family one minute, and then the next, he'd be writing with intense focus.
So this is for people who have unpredictable schedules or can't block off huge chunks of time.
Exactly. It takes practice to develop that mental agility, to be able to shift your focus on demand. But it's a super valuable skill. The most important thing, Newport says, is to find a philosophy that works for you, something you can stick with.
That makes sense. Okay, what's rule number 2?
This one's a little counterintuitive. Embrace boredom.
Boredom. Isn't that like the opposite of what we're trying to do?
It seems that way, right? But what Newport means is that you have to let your brain relax. Don't be afraid of those moments when you're not being bombarded with stimulation.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. It's about resisting the urge to constantly check your phone or jump on social media.
Exactly. Because every time you do that, you're training your brain to need that external stimulation. And that makes it harder to focus when you really need to.
So it's about building up that mental muscle to be okay with quiet.
Exactly. Newport has a few strategies for doing this. One is, don't take breaks from distraction. Instead, take breaks from focus.
Interesting. So it's not about having like a whole day where you're off the internet.
Right. It's about intentionally avoiding distractions during your deep work time and maybe even some of your downtime at home.
That's tough, but I get it. It's about building that habit of not reaching for your phone every time you have a spare minute.
Exactly. Another strategy is work like Teddy Roosevelt. He was this incredibly busy guy involved in all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, he was president, a writer, an explorer, all kinds of things.
And he was a top student. His secret: dedicated focus blocks. He'd set aside specific times for intense study, and then he'd allow himself to do all his other stuff without feeling burnt out.
So it's about creating those boundaries, those protected times for focused work.
Exactly. And finally, there's meditating productively. This is about using those in-between times when you're physically occupied but your mind's free to think deeply about work problems.
Like when you're commuting or going for a walk.
Exactly. It's a way to make those times productive without needing any external distractions.
I like that. Okay, what's rule number 3?
This one's a big one. Quit social media. And I mean, really quit.
Whoa. Okay, that's a bold statement.
Newport is serious about this. He talks about his decision to never join Facebook and how people would always try to justify their social media use.
Oh, yeah, you always hear those arguments. It helps me stay connected with people, or I get news from it.
Right. The any benefit approach, he calls it. If there's even one tiny benefit, it's worth it. But he says that thinking ignores the potential downsides, the cost to your time and attention.
So it's about being more critical, right? Asking yourself if those benefits are really worth it.
Exactly. He contrasts that with the craftsman approach, where you choose tools based on their positive impact on your goals.
So it's about being intentional, choosing tools that actually help you achieve what you want to achieve.
Exactly. And he has some tips for adopting this approach. One is to apply the law of the vital few to your internet habits.
The 80-20 rule, right? Where 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts?
Exactly. So look at your internet use. Are you spending most of your time on things that actually matter?
Okay, so be more mindful of where your time and attention are going.
Exactly. And then there's the 30-day social media experiment. Go cold turkey for a month, and then ask yourself, were your days better without it? Did anyone important notice you were gone?
That's a good test. It takes away the FOMO and lets you see things more clearly.
Right. And finally, he says, don't use the internet to entertain yourself. He argues that the constant stream of low-quality entertainment online makes our leisure time less fulfilling.
Yeah, it's like you're always being passively entertained, but you never feel truly satisfied.
Exactly. He says we should be more deliberate about how we spend our free time, planning activities that actually contribute to our well-being.
So it's about reclaiming your leisure time, choosing how you want to spend it, instead of letting the internet decide for you.
Totally. All right, last rule, drain the shallows.
What does that mean?
It means minimizing all those little tasks that eat up your time and energy. The emails, the meetings, the admin stuff.
Okay, yeah, those can be real-time sucks.
And Newport says deep work is tiring. You only have so much mental energy for it.
So if you're spending all your energy on shallow stuff, you're not going to have anything left for the deep work.
Exactly. So how do we manage the shallows? Newport has a few strategies. One is schedule every minute of your day. Now, I know that sounds intense, but it's really about being intentional with your time.
So it's not about being rigid, it's about planning your day so you can make time for the important stuff.
Exactly. And if things change, you adjust. Another strategy is quantify the depth of every activity. When you're looking at a task, ask yourself, how long would it take someone without specialized knowledge to do this?
Okay, so if it takes a lot of expertise and focus, it's probably deep work.
Right. And that helps you prioritize. Finally, there's finish your work by 5:30. Setting a clear end to your workday creates a sense of urgency and protects your personal time.
It's like drawing a line in the sand. Work stays at work.
Exactly. The big takeaway here is that we tend to underestimate how much damage shallow work does and overestimate how important it is. Minimize it whenever you can.
Sounds like a good plan. So that's deep work in a nutshell. It's valuable, it's rare, it's meaningful, and there are ways to make it a part of your life.
Exactly. It's about focusing your energy on the things that truly matter, so you can learn better, create better, and find more satisfaction in what you do.
And it's not about being perfect, it's about taking small steps.
100%. Here's something to think about. What's one area of your life where you could try applying a little bit of deep work, maybe just 30 minutes a few times a week, no distractions, experiment with it, see what happens.
I love that challenge. Little changes can make a big difference.
That's all the time we have for this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring.